At CityCast Houston, we're all about culture, music, and live performances. And there's a great one coming up. The Apollo Chamber Players are bringing With Malice Toward None to Miller Outdoor Theater, a multimedia concert inspired by Abraham Lincoln's famous words and what they mean today. It features music from composers like Black Vietnam veteran J. Kimo Williams, with special guests like Houston Poet Laureate Emeritus Deborah Deep Mooten. Catch it live on Saturday, August 22nd. Free tickets are available starting August 21st at MillerOutdoorTheater.com.
Today on CityCast Houston, our streets are bad enough with traffic and safety issues, but there's a project that could make the problem even worse in the East End. Joining me to talk about it is Houston Chronicle's opinion editor, Evan Mintz. It's Monday, August 11th. I'm Laura Eisensee, filling in for Raheel Ramsanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Before we get into the conversation today, I have a favor to ask. CityCast is doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. If you took it last year, we would be grateful if you took it again, since we can't use last year's data anymore. Please go to citycast.fm/survey to take the survey. It's only 7 minutes long. We actually timed it. That's citycast.fm/survey. And when you fill it out, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and some CityCast Houston swag. Once again, that's citycast.fm/survey. Evan, so glad you could make it in to talk about this issue in the East End on Telephone Road. And one reason why I'm eager to talk about it is that one of my pet peeves about Houston, which of course I love, you love Houston, but I want our city to be more walkable and more friendly to pedestrians. And this project along Telephone Road in the East End, it's not really helping that. What's going on?
Well, it's not just about people who walk. It's about building safer roads for people who drive. The number one victims of car crashes in Houston are people who are in cars. And that just kind of makes sense. But for about the past 5 years, the city and the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority down there along Telephone Road between Lockwood and Lawndale, they'd been working on a road improvement project. And they were bringing down federal dollars and all these community groups, a lot of planning, a lot of folks at the table getting everybody's buy-in. And it would have included wider sidewalks, protected bike lanes, and critically, infrastructure to slow down illegally speeding, unsafe drivers. And it would do that by shifting the road to a 3-lane design. Kind of got 1 lane in each direction and a turn lane in the middle.
Okay, so 3 lanes total. Why would that make such a big difference in terms of safety? Do you know any of the mechanics of that?
Well, a lot of it is having a safe place for cars to go so that if you need to turn left, you know where you can go and stop rather than stopping in the middle of the road. Also, with more narrow lanes, people drive safer. Driving is a high-risk activity. It's dangerous, and you want to design roads in ways that kind of compels people to pay attention and feel like maybe if you speed, it's not entirely safe. And there's all this research out there that shows this is kind of the optimal road design for your city streets. The Federal Highway Administration recommends turning 4-lane roads into this 3-lane design because you get these protected left turns, you get shorter crossings for pedestrians, reduced travel speeds, reduced crash severity. It's great stuff. The National Association of City Transportation Officials recommends this design because you get fewer rear ends and side swipe crashes between cars. And the Baker Institute has had some great research on road safety throughout the region and recommended this design. And you can see what it looks like up on 11th Street.
Yeah, that's right. In my neighborhood, 11th Street, it's great. You can walk, there's bike lanes, traffic has slowed way down. I know there are some complaints, people think it's maybe slightly more congested, but I think it means that people are just going the speed limit. People aren't speeding anymore.
And something that you got to look at are the stats out of this too. After they redid the 11th Street project, we saw a 36% decline in crashes and a total elimination of injury-causing crashes. There's a huge difference between a crash that happens at 30 miles per hour and a crash at 40 miles per hour. It is the difference between calling up the insurance company and calling up the emergency room.
Yeah. And as someone who got rear-ended over the summer, anything to eliminate, reduce those crashes, I think we would be in favor for. But all that plan that you just described with the 3 lanes, with the wider sidewalks, it also had some bike lanes, right?
Right.
That's not happening.
Well, the city is pushing back and saying they don't like this design and they want it to be a 4-lane design. They want to get rid of the bike lanes, and all this is going to be an added cost of about $500,000. Now, to the city's credit, they heard the community say they really want wider sidewalks because there's a lot of schools along here. People want to walk to school. They want to be safe. So they've taken that into account. And I think from the city's perspective, they've done a good job of reaching a kind of compromise. But the fact of the matter is that no one was really calling for this compromise besides City Hall.
Yeah. And I want to take a minute that this stretch of Telephone Road, I used to go by it a lot when I worked at the Houston NPR station at the University of Houston. And, definitely would not walk there from U of H because I would have to go under 45. But like once you're there on Telephone Road, like there's so many nice places. Like you said, there's schools, there's Project Chrysalis, it's a middle school, there's Cage Elementary, there's this great cafe, Bohemios, a really great taqueria, Munchies. There's a lot of activity happening along Telephone Road. And yeah, just thinking about those kids walking to school, I'm glad that there was a compromise on the sidewalks, but it doesn't make sense of you have a plan, you've worked on the plan, people like the plan, it follows safety guidelines by multiple experts and entities. Right. The community likes the plan, and now we're going to spend more money to do a different plan. Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And there are these road projects where there's been back and forth over it. I'm thinking on Montrose or on 11th Street, like we mentioned, where there were community groups that didn't really like it. They weren't all on board. But what I've seen for this Telephone Road project is that really all of the local organizations are on board. The Greater Eastwood Super Neighborhood, the president, Lindsey Williams, really spoke up loudly to say, we want that center turn lane. We want that 3-lane design. We want safety for kids. Clay Dipple, the vice president of the Eastwood Civic Association, spoke out too and said they were really concerned about the dangers presented by rolling back to a less safe road design. And the TIRZ, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, that provides a lot of funding for this, has delayed their vote on approving this new City Hall design and is going to have an open house for people to come, listen, learn, discuss on the 19th.
Like me, you're probably looking for some good road trips to make the most out of summer. Well, let me tell you about Port Aransas. My family and I spent a weekend there, and we can't wait to go back because Port A is such a unique beach town. First, almost everybody rolls around the island in golf carts. It is so cool. Second, you can make sun-soaked memories by hanging out on the beach all day or mix it up and try your hand at some surfing or parasailing. We did that and the entire family loved it. Or you can go fishing with one of the many charters setting sail from the harbor. Port A has something for everyone, and it's an easy drive from Houston, making it a great road trip destination. One visit and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your trip to Texas's beach.
Got any fun trips coming up? One thing you probably haven't put on your packing list is learning the language. But with Babbel, you can start talking in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. And I also just persuaded my friend who's going to France this fall to learn French with Babbel, but that is another story. Babbel's extremely fun and intuitive. It's like having a private tutor in your pocket. Handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel's lessons are voiced by real native speakers and built with science-backed cognitive tools and interactive features to fit any learning style. I love a lot of the different Babbel features. The Babbel games for sentence building, Babbel speech recognition, which helps me get the pronunciation right. And now I'm really into Babbel's word of the day, which greets me on the homepage of the app. Every day, a new word revealed like a little surprise with a sentence to help contextualize it. It's like a daily treat for me. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other leading universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Look, I want you to learn another language. So I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I want to zoom out because it seems like this is a pattern with the administration of Mayor Whitmire. We're seeing this here on Telephone Road. You mentioned the Montrose Boulevard. We've been hearing kind of rumors that maybe they might scale back the changes that they did on 11th Street in the Heights. Why do you think this seems to be a pattern with his administration? Do you think there's something else going on that's kind of causing this whiplash on road safety design?
I mean, part of the problem is that we haven't gotten a clear articulation of this from City Hall. And they will say that it is our perspective that we cannot shrink or remove general mobility lanes, which are car lanes. And when concerns are brought up by Link Houston or Bike Houston or these advocacy groups, the City Hall, the mayor really doesn't engage. But I've spent some time trying to talk to the mayor and his advisors, and a sense that I've gotten from them that I wish they'd be more clear about was that they really think that Houston needs greater capacity on our roads. They're preparing for regional growth. They think the city is growing and 3 lanes just isn't enough.
Okay. So they're thinking we got to sort of build it and they will come kind of mentality, or they are coming, so we must build it. Houston, we have been growing as a region, but that doesn't mean there's more cars specifically in the East End. Right.
Even if, say, you get growth out in Fulshire, I'm kind of skeptical that a lot of the growth out in the suburbs means more people driving on telephone roads. And in fact, the folks down at Farm & City, an Austin-based think tank, found that increased suburban development actually leads to fewer people commuting to the city, because you're not just a bedroom community and you're driving downtown for a job. Like, the jobs are out there, the schools are out there, the grocery stores are out there. Why would you come downtown unless you're going to a specific restaurant or an Astros game?
Yeah.
But there's another aspect to it, too, which is that if you look at just the National Association of City Transportation Officials statistics, they will say that this 3-lane design can accommodate about 25,000 drivers per day. And looking at our city and state statistics, this stretch of Telephone Road gets about 8,000 drivers per day. Basically, you could triple the number of cars and you would still have some wiggle room with a 3-lane design.
Wow. It's crazy to me that we have all this information, we have all this research and statistics, and when you put it on the latest plan, this compromise, it still doesn't really make sense. And I'm wondering, do you agree with some of the mayor's advisors that we have to prepare for a growing city, or do you think maybe the city of Houston proper, we've sort of hit our peak and maybe the growth is really just going to be in the suburbs?
Well, Houston, even just the city of Houston, is very big. And you can see parts of neighborhoods shrink and other neighborhoods grow at the same time. So maybe there's this concern that, well, if we do all this redevelopment along Telephone Road, we'll see new apartments come in and townhouses and all this new growth, kind of like we've seen in other parts of Edo. But something that Houston Chronicle found is that even if you have denser development, it doesn't necessarily mean you get more people. And then if you do get that denser development, it opens the door to getting people around without a car, whether it's mass transit, whether onto their feet. Not all rides, not all trips you're doing, but some of them.
Some of them.
Right. And just getting a few percentage points skimmed off the number of riders you get can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we started off talking about this particular stretch. It's like about a half-mile stretch of Telephone Road in the East End, but there's so much more going on. It's really about, is our city growing? What kind of city do we plan for? And how do we have more development and also keep and nurture the families that are there? So it seems like there's this issue on Telephone Road, like it's much bigger than just what it seems like on the surface.
Right. And this really is the debate, I think, that is happening all across the city when you see City Hall push back against plans on Shepherd or Montrose or 11th Street, or just generally this idea that, you need to do what they call a road diet, that you have too many lanes for the number of drivers you have. It leads to higher speeds, unsafe driving, harder to walk around the neighborhood. But from City Hall's perspective, they think we need those lanes to accommodate all of the growth that we are getting, that we are going to get. But here's the real rub in it. If you talk to, say, Bill King, who's not an official part of City Hall, but he's a key, influential, informal advisor to the mayor, he's been writing that Houston is going to see a population decline, that our city growth has stalled, that all of that growth is driven by immigration. And right now you have a White House that not only wants to stop immigration, but actually get net deportation. So we get net population shrinking, and that all the growth you have is happening in the suburbs. And even that is going to start to even out at some point. And this has major ramifications for the city. If you're looking at long-term expenses like pensions or healthcare costs, or even paying for upkeep on infrastructure, you need to be thinking, how are we going to maintain a quality of services in our city with a shrinking tax base? And this is a thing you've seen happen in a lot of Rust Belt cities, your Detroits, your Clevelands, your St. Louis's. And you've got to be asking yourself, what is it we should be doing now to prepare for this future? And often it means don't overbuild your infrastructure. King has said that the I-45 project that's going on right now is going to be one of the last freeway projects we ever do. We're not really going to need anything else besides regular maintenance for, a long time.
Yeah.
And so you've got to ask yourself, why are we putting an effort to expand roads to prepare for a number of drivers that Houston very well may never get?
I think that these are like really big questions of like, what is the future of Houston?
Right.
Are we going to be the next Cleveland? And how do we prepare for that? And it makes me think, why can't we just do road design for neighborhoods, right? Like, why can't we do road design and safety projects for the people who live there versus people who are commuting in or primarily taking the freeways or just going downtown for a show, which is great. I mean, they're part of the greater fabric of our city. But when you're thinking about a neighborhood like the East End, why can't we just build road design that strengthens their community?
I think that's a really good question, that a lot of our infrastructure planning, whether it's through the Houston Galveston Area Council, whether it's through TxDOT, prioritizes long distance commuters or commercial traffic over quality of life and safety concerns for people in neighborhoods. And typically, City Hall has kind of been on the other end of that, pushing back. But right now, we've seen this mindset out of City Hall that says that we have to worry more about people driving through neighborhoods than the people living in neighborhoods. And when the question of safety is brought up, City Hall will say, well, this is a job for law enforcement. They need to be handing out tickets. But the reality is that we can barely hire enough officers as is right now. And that if you have police officers, you probably want them doing their highest and best duty, which is to solve homicides and violent crimes. Prioritize that first. And in the same way, where if you want to help the cops in their jobs, you say you'll lock your door if you're a business, may put up a security camera. There's a lot of non-law enforcement stuff you can do to help enforce the law. And one of them is to build roads in a way that compels safe driving. And if we refuse to do that as a city, basically we're taking one of our law enforcement tools out of the toolbox and saying we're not going to use it.
Yeah, I thought that was something that was really interesting that y'all wrote about in the op-ed about this, that road safety is part of public safety. Like this is part of keeping the public safe, whether you're walking, riding your bike, driving, it's all falls under that umbrella. And that, I think, leads me to my last question, which is, you mentioned this public meeting later in August for folks in the East End who want to share their thoughts about this particular project. But for all of Houstonians, whether you're in the Heights or Montrose or Southwest Houston, if people are concerned about road safety in their own neighborhoods, how can they make their voices heard? What are some avenues there?
I would say speak out to your city council member and tell them you want safe road design. Tell the mayor you want this. The mayor is convinced that the only people who support this sort of road design are special interests, your Bike Houston, your Link Houston, your people whose job it is to call for these things. But if you hear from voters that they view this as a public safety issue, maybe we'll get some minds changed. And I really think there's a lot of opportunity for folks across the political spectrum, from your Crime Stoppers to your Bike Houston, to all say in one voice, this is about building safe roads for everyone. Unfortunately, right now, folks kind of speak in their silos and they don't want to reach across one another. And my hope is that, over at the Chronicle, as we write these editorials and we cover this, we can help bring together folks to all see that really people who they maybe feel like they don't have a lot in common with are all saying the same thing, but just using different language.
Yeah, we need some interpreters. Maybe we'll help interpret and bridge those gaps. Evan, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this. I learned a lot.
Well, thank you for having me. Talk to you next time.
That was Evan Mintz. He's the editor of opinion and community engagement at the Houston Chronicle. You can check out the Chronicle's coverage of this issue and other stories we talked about today with the links in our show notes. If you care about having safer streets, then text this episode to 3 friends right now. And if you enjoyed this podcast, then give us a rating and review so even more Houstonians can find our show and get engaged. We also have our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, that has great life hacks to this sprawling, swampy city and amazing events every week, so make sure you subscribe. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Houston neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. Our host, Raheel Ramzanali, will be back tomorrow with a conversation with HISD Superintendent Mike Miles. So again, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. That's it for today. I'm Laura Eisensee, and those school zones are going to be flashing this week, so make sure you slow down.